talk about The Goddess Test by Amy Carter, which is a retelling of the Hades and Persephone myth from Greek mythology. For those of you not familiar with the myth, Hades was lonely, and one day he saw Persephone, who's his niece by the way. She was picking flowers and he was like, I gotta have that. So, puts a flower up there. Persephone sees it as like, oh my god, gotta have that. So she takes the flower, Hades takes her, pomegranate seeds were eaten, and basically she gets stuck to spend 6 months in the Underworld with Hades, who becomes her husband, and then she spends the other 6 months with her mother Demeter, and that's how we have winter and summer, because when Persephone is done with Hades, Demeter has anxiety and suffers from emotional distress, and winter comes. Winter is coming. Game of Thrones. So, it's a very kind of squicky tale, because Persephone is basically like a teenager when this happens. Hades is always kind of like an older person, and depending on which version of the myth you read, they fall in love, or it just becomes a whole Stockholm Syndrome kind of thing. But it's a very dark-ish romance. That being said, Hades is one of the more faithful husbands. I mean, he only has, I think, one noticeable affair throughout their entire marriage. And Persephone turned her into a mint when that happened, so obviously she doesn't like anyone messing with her man. But this book takes not just the myth itself, but Greek mythology as a whole, and sort of dumbs it down. Well, not even dumbs it down. To use a TV tropes term, it gets hijacked by Jesus, like hardcore. But let me just explain what the book's about. So our main character's name is Kate. She's from New York City, and her mother has cancer. And, it's getting serious, she's about to die, so they move back to this old neighborhood where her mom used to live to get ready for her to die. And, her mom really wants her to go to school and try to have some semblance of a normal life before everything goes to hell. But Kate, I want to sympathize with her character really badly, because my biggest fear is to lose my mother, especially something like cancer. And that's something I feel like, as soon as I heard about that, I'm like, I should be able to empathize with her. But she just comes off as sort of very aggressively standoffish. She's one of those kind of, I think, straw feminists, because she immediately goes into this whole time of about how, oh no, I don't like dresses, I don't really like hanging out with people. Like, she really thinks that she's above everyone else. And she kind of demeans girlier girls in an attempt to make herself seem, like a better, more structured character. And that instantly turned me off to her. When she comes to this new area and she's like, I don't really want friends, I don't care about anyone, I don't want friends. And 5 people, well not 5, but she immediately gains 2 people who become her friend. The test aspect of it comes from the character Hades, who is a set of guy named Henry, is finding these women to be his Persephone, but they all end up getting murdered, or because they end up failing these tests. So he needs to find a new one. And that's kind of the opening prologue of this whole story. And then one of the female characters in the book, because when Kate comes, there's obviously a hot guy, and that hot guy obviously has a girlfriend. I don't remember either his character's name, so I'm just going to call the girlfriend Rosalie. So Rosalie decides that she doesn't like Kate, and she decides to play a trick on Kate by saying, oh, we're going to have a party, you're invited. And she takes Kate up to this cove, because she knows that Kate can't swim, and this girl who is captain of the swim team jumps into the river and smashes her head against a rock. Kate jumps in to go save her, but oh no, Rosalie's dead. And then Henry comes and says, oh, I can save your friend if you decided that you're going to come live with me. And she's like, yeah, save her, come on. And it's one of those things where it's supposed to be a noble act. It's supposed to be oh yeah, this is a person who should become a goddess, she's noble and she's strong. But it was I remember just thinking, she tried to trick you and has done nothing nice to you at all, you already risked your life to try to save her because you can't swim when you dive into the water to go save her. And now you're gonna give up your freedom and the rest of the time you can interact with your mother to save a girl who has done absolutely nothing for you. And I get, yeah, it's supposed to be noble. But to me, it just sounds stupid. I can't connect with that whole idea. I mean, yeah, it's a nice action, but she has done nothing to deserve that kind of niceness. And Kate's personality, from how we see her standoffish and superior idea, does not make me think that she would be that nice to do that anyway. So immediately I'm like, alright, whatever, I'm just gonna have to go with the flow. So she ends up eventually going to stay with Henry, and she has to pass all these tests in order to become a goddess, and then she can stay forever, and eventually they fall in love, and there's this blah blah blah. I mean, I really wanted to like this book. I mean, I heard about it on Goodreads. A lot of people like really hate it. I'm just thinking, you know, it cannot be that bad. I really didn't think it was going to be that bad, but when I actually read it, I felt frustrated because of how much they changed to make it more politically correct. I mean, because all the gods are related in Greek mythology, you know, Hades, Hera, etc. They're all related, and there's a lot of incest going around. I mean, Zeus has been with 2 out of his 3 sisters. He's married to one, screwed another. Persephone's his kid. That's how, you know, so Hades is Persephone's, you know, uncle twice over. But it's not, in the book, the gods exist, but they're not really related. Like, they call each other brother and sister, but they're not really brother and sister. They're not related in any sort of way. So there's no incest. That whole area, that whole complex thing about, you know, makes it kind of disturbing is completely cut out to begin with, you know, already. And then to really top it off, you find out midway that each of the tests that Kate has to deal with are her going against the 7 deadly sins, you know, pride, wrath, lust, envy, greed, sloth, and gluttony. And, thank you for that, alchemist. But what irritates me about that concept is that is a very Christian idea, right? And that's fine, you know. I'm down with the Judeo-Christian stuff, you know. I come from that background. But the Greek gods basically encompass all 7 of those things in practically every single one of them. I mean, open any myth. They're killing someone, they're raping someone. I mean, damn, Zeus turns into a swan and just starts raping people, turns into a bull, rapes people. I mean, he's got over about 100-something children just laying around in the earth realm, not to mention his half-divine children. And all of a sudden, Zeus is like, no lust. No greed, no envy. It's completely ridiculous. I mean, Hera. You want to tell me that Hera is like, no, you can't have envy. Hera, of all people. It's imbecilic. It makes absolutely no sense in the context of what you're trying to write about. And if you want to write about those kind of concepts, why choose a Parthenon of deities who are completely hedonistic? That's the thing about the Greek gods. They are very human. They're like basically if you gave the worst people in the world almost omnipotent power. That's what you would get. They're very human people. They're very tangible. You know, it's not like the Judeo-Christian God where it's kind of like this figure that we don't even know what he looks like. He just could be anything. Where the gods, you know what they look like. You have an idea what they look like. You know, you can contact them. They come to us all the time. They are as much a part of us as anything else. They're almost not even divine because of their needs are so much like ours. And yet, that's not what you get in this. You get these weird constructs of completely different things. I mean, I really don't understand why she chose Greek mythology if she was going to completely remove everything about Greek mythology. I mean, Hades is a virgin. Hades, god of the underworld, the wealthiest of all of the gods, and he is a millennia-old virgin. Nothing wrong with being a virgin, mind you. We've all been a virgin at least once. You know, at least once. But, really? Really? You've been alive for a millennia and you haven't tapped not one ass? Really? Am I supposed to believe that? a Greek god. So this book is just frustrating. I mean, the heroine leaves so much to the imagination. I mean, her whole shtick is like, oh, I don't like pretty dresses. Dresses are for like, it's so irritating. I hate those kind of straw feminist characters that are really supposed to be like, really like, yeah, they're a tough girl. Like, no, all you're doing is putting down girls who like other things. And the whole book is just so contrived. Basically, the ending of it is a complete cop-out to everything. It's such a deus ex machina. And it's so upsetting to me because, you know, Greek mythology has a lot of tragedy in it. You know, people die, people hurt, people get raped, people get tortured. It's not a nice... Their stories, while it have lasted for long, are dark and twisted and heartbreaking at times. And this has none of that. It's almost disrespectful to the original source material. Almost completely disrespectful. And I'm not even angry about it now, because I read it so far ago, I don't even care. But it's like, for me, it's just completely pointless. You know, City of Bones was just boring, you know, but this is just purely pointless. And it's sad because, you know, the Hades Persephone myth is one of my favorites because it's so complicated in how you talk about the psyche of how this teenage girl, practically, even if she is an immortal, she's basically a teenager at this point, gets stolen by her uncle, her family member, someone she's supposed to be able to trust. He kidnaps her and forces her to be his bride with kindness, you know? He basically controls her with kindness, seduces her with kindness, but it's still seduction. It's like a twisted little Lolita story that could be so fascinating, so interesting, but instead it just turned into a really awkward, patronizing romance that you could do with any other background. Like, what was really the point of having Greek mythology ingrained into this at all? At all. There's nothing to it. The tests are completely ridiculous. I mean, you hear about Hercules' 12 labors. I mean, nothing she has to do is that complicated at all. I mean, literally, not to spoil anything too badly, but one of the tests is basically for her to not wear all the fancy dresses that she is bombarded with every day. Like, that's really a test, that she would not wear these dresses. And I'm just thinking to myself, how does that prove that you would be an immortal, that you are worthy of, you know, immortality, of almost supreme cosmic power? You deserve that because you don't like to wear dresses. I like to wear dresses all the time. Does that mean I get to be a deity now? Percy Jackson series is so good. I mean, I haven't finished the entire series. I only have the 3 books, which I haven't done an official review. I want to finish reading the other 2. But Percy Jackson and the Olympians is a children's book series, and yet it tackles the complexity of these myths better than this young adult series. And that really, you know, that upsets me to a degree, because I feel like you're a young adult, you should be able to tackle these hard issues with, you know, class. But no, instead they are just pushed away, completely forgotten, and what do you have in the end? Nothing. That part of, like, even if this had been like a normal book about it, just a normal girl trying to go on a quest to save her mother, this would still be bad. Because the characters aren't likable, the challenges she goes through are not that interesting, and her falling in love with Henry is just so bland. It's like a really cheap Beauty and the Beast story. Because at least with Beauty and the Beast, you get like a character that you can like feel a connection to with Belle, and the Beast, you get why he's grim. Hades, or Henry, or whatever you want to call him, I don't care about him. It's more like you're supposed to care because of some predisposed notion of the myth, but it's not connected to anything. It's just really, really poorly done. And like I said, the ending is the worst part of it, because it takes away any poignancy of any sacrifices that could have been made at all. It's almost like how in Breaking Dawn, Bella can just have a family despite having made a sacrifice which would inhibit her to do so. Like, what is the point of staging that up and talking about the great sacrifice that she'll have to give up if in the end you kind of are like, no, never mind, everything's going to work out peachy keen? And I know there are 2 more books in this series, but at this point it's like, what would be the point of that? Why would you need to have a continuation of this story? It's over. It's ended. You already proved your point. Not everything has to be a trilogy. Not everything is meant to be a trilogy. And making it a trilogy just cheapens the books even more, because what do you have to build on after this? Really? So, the Goddess Test, Amy, Carter, it's a very poorly put together book on all levels. Its use of mythos is deplorable to a degree because it has no sense of where it's coming from. The main character just comes off as very waspy and rude, so that you don't understand why people would want to gravitate to be her friend in the first place. You don't understand why she would be chosen to have powers. Henry is just kind of like, he's just any sort of Lord Byron-y, angsty-ridden male lead. I mean, he is so interchangeable with any of these guys that we see in modern young adult literature. Nothing about him stands up. And the ending is just completely bleh, for lack of a better word. Skip this. I mean, if you really want to read books about Greek mythology put in a present day setting, Percy Jackson and the Olympians, really. I have to give that book so much praise after reading this. It surprises me so much how that series can tackle incest and, all these children being lost, but this book cannot at all, when it had a perfect opportunity to do so. So, even though this book didn't, insult me, I still have to give it 1 star, because it really does not deliver on any level of satisfaction. None. And it was just dull. Anyway, thank you, and I will see you later.